involved in the scientific coalition for ufology and other people that are doing things. I'm trying to support anyone any way I can, basically, who's interested in seeking the truth on this issue. I would also like to facilitate and offer to do so to Lynn and any others. If you have sources who work inside secret programs in the government, after this legislation is enacted this fall, I will do anything I can to facilitate. If those people don't know who to talk to or how to approach the government, I will be thrilled to help them do that.
Woo!
Really, all I'm trying to do is, initially I got involved because we had a very specific national security problem, which was somebody was violating U.S. airspace. And the American people think that their airspace is secure, that they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on intelligence and defense to have a secure and safe country. And to find out that that system is failing, it was part of my job to be one of the people that makes sure that the country is safe. That's what I was being paid to do. And to find out that the system was failing, it felt incumbent for me to take action to do something about that. But it also happened that I was somebody who has a lifelong interest in this topic and this subject. It goes beyond national security. And I think the issue certainly does go beyond national security. And that's why, for example, I'm involved with the Galileo Project. And I'm much more, again, their views and my views, let's don't confuse the two. I'm only speaking for myself. But along these lines, let me make a couple of other observations. The biggest mistake that people make in thinking about the U.S. government and probably most other governments is to think of it as a coherent, rational entity. Governments are not coherent, rational entities. They're not like people. They're more like medieval kingdoms that have a distribution of different nobles and different errands and power centers. And those power centers are all competing with one another. And they don't want to share information, they don't want to share resources, and they don't want to do what the king tells them to do. They've got their own agendas. And so people say things like, well, if there was this incident with the Air Force at this nuclear base, then surely the American government would do X, Y, or Z. Well, that incident was known to one component of the American government called the Air Force, who may not have told anybody else about it, including the president or the White House. So, of course, maybe the White House or president didn't react and do anything. They don't even talk to the other services. When I worked at the Senate Armed Services Committee, one of the biggest things we did in the 1980s was to enact legislation. At that time, they were each so independent of one another that when our troops would land in a battle zone, the Army, the Navy and Army radios were not compatible. They couldn't even talk to each other. That's how wildly, crazily independent these different bureaucracies are. And so the U.S. government is a panoply of different organizations with different people running them with different perspectives. And there's a lot of different views in that panoply regarding this issue. There's a tremendous amount of hostility in some areas. There are pockets of other areas with people that are actually very excited about this, want to engage on it. So I would also, just offer that as an observation as somebody who's worked inside the belly of the beast, to think about the complexity of this, the way information actually moves and decisions are made. There are people that think that, there's this big control program and the government's leaking information. They're giving the government way too much credit. The government doesn't have to have its act together to be able to do something like that. Every once in a while they do, but the government is often wildly disorganized, and they get it together, when there's a war or something that compels them all, the forces that work together. But in peacetime, it's constant competition for resources behind the scenes. They're all trying to outcompete the other, and so forth and et cetera. So, as these discussions continue and you hear about these issues involving the government, try to bear in mind the complexity, the immense size of the organization, and the number of different elements that are competing with one another in that process.
Thank you. Jaime, México no está tan lejos de Estados Unidos. Seguro que el debate público también